So let me get this straight, Zoraxa, Xylar hissed, her multiple eyes blinking with disbelief. You crossed half the universe, infiltrated the humans, seduced a mechanic. Was that the word? And all to find out that they survive, Zoraxa completed, with a sigh that made the delicate cobwebs decorating the meeting room tremble. The mating, they survive the mating. A dead silence fell over the elegant chamber, broken only by the soft crackle of the methane gas fireplace. Around the polished obsidian table, the representatives of one of the most powerful species in the cosmos stared at each other, their mandibles slack, their exoskeletons trembling. They were the Space Black Widows, and they had a problem. For them, reproduction was a serious matter, a final act, a delicious banquet where the male, after fulfilling his reproductive duty, became the female's nutritious appetizer. These alien creatures had evolved from the earth spider known as the Black Widow, and just like those arachnids, they were accustomed to devouring the male after copulation. It was the law of nature, the foundation of their society, and the highlight of a Saturday night. But humans, oh humans, those soft bipedal creatures, strangely obsessed with sports, had crossed their path, and unintentionally, they posed an insurmountable obstacle to the expansion of the Black Widow Empire. Zoraxa, the web's best spy, had infiltrated Earth disguised as a karaoke singer, and she had come to a shocking conclusion. Not only do human males survive mating, they actually enjoy it. But how? Shrieked Xylar, the matriarch of her clan, slamming one of her 8 legs on the table. It's unnatural. It's inefficient. What's the point of keeping a male around after he's served his reproductive purpose? Just to get in the way? To snore? Worse, Zoraxa murmured, her gaze fixed on a distant point in space. It seems the females also enjoy their company. A collective gasp swept through the room. Enjoy their company, a male's. The idea was so absurd it nearly caused a nervous system collapse in more than one of them. That's what I thought before I infiltrated their society, Zoraxa retorted. But now, I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe devouring the males isn't a demographically sustainable long-term strategy. The others looked at her as if she were questioning the very pillars of their society, which in fact she was, the very foundation upon which the Black Widow Empire had spread across the galaxy. Zoraxa, explain what these apes have done to you. We must study this phenomenon, Xylar declared, regaining her composure. We must understand how these creatures achieve such a biological anomaly if we are to subjugate them. Or perhaps we should exterminate them before their strange form of reproduction spreads through the galaxy like a plague, suggested Counselor Irenia, a dangerous glint in her eyes. I will tell you my story, so we can decide what to do with the humans. First, I took on a humanoid form. Then I opened a portal to Earth. What happened next? I'm still processing it. Zoraxa began to tell her tale. The portal opened without a problem, a vortex of energy connecting her world to Earth. And there, in a dive bar in some Los Angeles suburb, where humans gathered to drink and argue about things as trivial as football and politics, the portal appeared. The bar's patrons, with a blood alcohol level that could be considered an alternative fuel in some civilizations, barely flinched. One of them, a guy in a "I'm the party" kinked shirt, looked at the portal and said, "Hey guys, looks like the karaoke machine came with special effects tonight." Zoraxa emerged from the portal. her imposing figure moving with the fluid grace of a spider, like cobwebs swaying in a breeze. "I have come to test the endurance of human males," she announced, looking around with disdain. The party king, clearly not grasping the gravity of the situation, raised his beer and replied, "Well, lady, you've come to the right place. We're all experts at surviving epic nights. You want a beer? Or something more exotic?" Zoraxa, not fully understanding the offer but sensing a challenge, smiled a smile that was more threat than welcome. "I don't need your drinks, human. I need a male to test." And just like that, in a twist no one saw coming, the night took a turn that not even the most daring Hollywood screenwriter could have imagined. Humanity was about to prove that when it comes to survival, no mating ritual can stop them. Zoraxa's proposal echoed through the bar, mixing with the background music and the laughter of the humans. An awkward silence fell over the place, broken only by the clinking of glasses and the creak of the door as a new customer walked in. It was Raul, a divorced mechanic who owned a spaceship junkyard. Raul had just been out buying his son a Halloween costume. He was more of a Day of the Dead guy himself, but his kid was excited about Halloween. "A male to test," Raul said, wiping grease from his hands onto his work overalls. "Honey, we're all alpha males in here. Or at least, that's what we say after a few beers. But what kind of test are we talking about?" Zoraxa, intrigued by this human's boldness, explained in a voice that vibrated like the low hum of a starship taking off. "Our mating ritual is final. The males do not survive. But you, human, seem reckless enough to be part of an experiment." Raul, with a grin that could only be described as "I'm about to make a huge mistake, and I'm going to love it," replied, "Well, if it's for galactic science, how can I refuse? But we have a rule here. First, you buy a round." The laughter that erupted from the group was loud enough to rattle the bottles on the shelves. Zoraxa, not quite getting the human humor, nodded, determined to observe this curious race more closely. As Raul and Zoraxa sat at a secluded table, the rest of the bar patrons gathered around, curious to see how this strange intergalactic encounter would unfold. A man in a t-shirt that read, "I'm the boss," not you, leaned toward Raul and whispered, "Be careful, buddy. If you survive this, you'll be more famous than the guy who invented the 'your mom' joke." Raul, winking, replied, "Don't worry. I'll be the hero humanity never knew it needed, or the idiot who tried to hit on a lethal alien. 50-50. Meanwhile, Zoraxa studied a couple kissing at a table in the back. Excellent, she thought. That female is devouring a male, as she should. Personally, I prefer to start with the arms or legs, but I suppose it's a matter of taste. Just then, something totally unexpected happened. The couple stopped kissing and started talking. How could that be? To Zoraxa, it was like putting a piece of chicken in your mouth, playing with it for a bit, and then putting it back on the plate. Completely bewildered, she turned to Raul, her eyes focusing on the human, calculating, analyzing. "Do you really think you can survive our ritual?" she asked, her tone a curious cocktail of disbelief and challenge. Raul, with a confidence that could only come from alcohol, ignorance, or a combination of both, answered, "Ma'am, I've survived dates with feminists, family reunions, and watching my team lose the World Cup. I think I can handle whatever you've got planned." And with that declaration, The challenge was on. The bar had become the arena for a cosmic battle of wits, endurance, and possibly survival. The bar's atmosphere had shifted. It was no longer a typical fun night out. It had become the stage for an event that could change humanity's cosmic reputation. Zoraxa, with a mix of curiosity and disdain, extended a hand that looked more like a claw, inviting Raul to follow her. "Let's go somewhere more suitable," she said, and with a gesture, she opened the intergalactic portal again, now smaller, right in the middle of the bar. "All right," Raul said, "but first, let me hit the restroom. I still smell like nuclear engine plutonium." The humans, with a mix of awe and fear, watched as Raul, without hesitation, got up, went to the restroom, and then walked toward the portal. "If I don't come back, tell my friends I went out like a hero," he joked, though his voice betrayed a slight tremor of uncertainty. On the other side of the portal, they found themselves in a space Black Widow mating chamber, a place filled with luminescent cobwebs that cast a bluish glow, creating an ethereal and, frankly, slightly creepy atmosphere. "This is the place where males usually meet their end," Zoraxa explained, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "But you, Raul, seem willing to defy fate. The apes on my planet are definitely not as brave as you humans." Raul, looking around, couldn't help but make a comment. "Well, I'll admit, the spiders on my planet aren't as attractive as you are. They're mostly repulsive and terrifying, just like my ex." Zoraxa, not quite getting the sarcasm, nodded. "Human humor is peculiar. Now, let's begin." The ritual started with a ceremonial dance, movements that looked like a mix of ballet and martial art. Raul, with the grace of someone who had done the chicken dance at more weddings than he could count, tried to follow the rhythm, mostly managing to look like a duck on an ice rink. "This isn't exactly what I had in mind when I said I wanted to get out of my routine," Raul muttered as he tried not to trip over his own feet. But then came the crucial moment, the deadly embrace. Zoraxa approached, her movements now slower, her piercing eyes fixed on Raul. "This is where the males succumb," she warned. Raul, with a bravery found only in those who know they're being recorded for posterity, opened his arms. "Come here, honey. Let's rewrite history." The moment Zoraxa wrapped herself around him, Raul said something unexpected. "Do you mind if I take my clothes off? I don't like to mate with my clothes on." That was fine with Zoraxa. She had trouble digesting clothing anyway, and the dye from the fabrics tended to stain her webs. Raul slipped off his overalls with a quick move, revealing a Halloween costume. But it wasn't just any costume. Raul had used his trip to the bathroom to put on the Spider-Man costume he'd bought for his son. A Spider-Man costume that was, to be honest, a little too tight. His belly poked out a bit, and the seams were straining dangerously at the thighs. But for Zoraxa, the effect was electrifying. Seeing this human, with his soft bipedal form, dressed in a tight suit that highlighted his masculine attributes, and bearing the iconography of an arachnid creature, was a shock to her system. It was as if evolution had decided to play a cosmic joke, combining the most attractive features of two species into a single being. Her arachnid nature fused with the bold nature of human males. It was an irresistible cocktail. Zoraxa froze. Her multiple eyes widened, focusing on every detail of the costume, the web pattern, the red and blue colors, the small mask that barely covered half his face. It was a biological abomination, yes, but a fascinating biological abomination. She had never felt anything like it. Her Black Widow instincts, programmed to devour the male after mating, were suddenly interrupted by a flood of attraction, curiosity, a strange mix of both. What is this? Zoraxa hissed, her voice trembling. Raul, oblivious to the emotional turmoil he was causing, shrugged. It's Spider-Man, the greatest superhero on my planet. You've never heard of him? Zoraxa shook her head, still in shock. No, but I see the resemblance, the webs, the agility. Although I must say your agility seems limited. Hey, it's a cheap costume, Raul defended himself. And besides, it's not easy to move with this gut. But the spirit is there. Zoraxa was still paralyzed, unable to process what she was seeing. The image of Raul, in his tight Spider-Man costume with his prominent belly, had short-circuited her predatory instincts. Instead of the desire to devour, she felt a strange admiration and something more, something that felt a lot like attraction. So, what do we do now? Raul asked with a nervous smile. This is supposed to be the part where, Zoraxa blinked, snapping out of her trance. I don't know, she admitted. Honestly, I've never encountered an anomaly like you before. Your appearance, it confuses me. Confuses me? Raul repeated, raising an eyebrow. In what way? Zoraxa took a deep breath, trying to sort out her thoughts. My instincts tell me I should consume you, but at the same time, I feel a curiosity, a fascination that I've never experienced before. Raul smiled. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm a little confused too. I never thought I'd end up mating with a cannibal alien, especially not one that looks like a spider. Zoraxa studied him closely. You are different, she murmured. You are bold. You are unexpected. You are human. For the first time, she realized she was using the word human with admiration. An awkward silence stretched between them. The tension in the air was palpable, but it was no longer a tension of danger. It was a tension of anticipation. So, what's your decision? Raul asked, breaking the silence. Do you consume me, or? Zoraxa looked him in the eyes, her own eyes glowing with an intensity that made Raul swallow hard. I think, she said finally, her voice soft but firm, that I need to study this phenomenon more closely. And with that, Zoraxa made a decision that would change the course of the Space Black Widow's history. Instead of devouring Raul, she decided to keep him, to study him, to understand him, even to learn from him. The story of how Raul, the human in the Spider-Man costume, survived shocked the other Black Widows. The commotion was immense. Some saw it as heresy, a betrayal of their ancient customs. Others, however, began to feel a pang of curiosity. What was it about this human that had captivated Zoraxa? Suddenly, a voice echoed in the chamber, deep and authoritarian, making the very luminescent cobwebs that decorated the place tremble. The voice came from the imposing figure of the leader of the Space Black Widows. Zoraxa, your conduct is unacceptable, the leader stated bluntly. You have failed in your duty as a Black Widow. You have allowed a male to survive. This is an affront to our ancient customs, a betrayal of our very nature. Zoraxa looked down, but there was no trace of regret in her eyes. I understand your displeasure, she replied in a firm voice. Understand? You understand nothing, the leader retorted, raising her voice. You have endangered the purity of our species. You have sown doubt where there should only be certainty. You have betrayed the legacy of our ancestors. The leader paused, taking a deep breath before continuing in an even more threatening tone. For this offense, Earth must be purged. I order an immediate invasion. Let no stone be left on stone. Let no trace of this biological anomaly remain. A dead silence once again filled the chamber. The situation had just gotten much, much more complicated. Then, Zoraxa lifted her head and looked her leader in the eyes. A faint smile played on her mandibles. I knew you'd say that. The leader frowned, her multiple eyes blinking in disbelief. What do you mean? Zoraxa extended one of her legs toward a point behind her, toward the same portal that had brought her to Earth. I knew you would order the destruction of Earth, she explained calmly. That's why I brought some friends. At that very moment, more humans began to emerge from the portal. But they weren't ordinary humans. They were the men from the karaoke bar. Many of them dressed in Spider-Man costumes. Tall Spider-Men, short Spider-Men, skinny Spider-Men, Spider-Men with beer guts, some even more prominent than Raul's, Spider-Men with elaborate costumes, and others with clearly homemade ones. A veritable legion of Spider-Men invaded the mating chamber, creating a scene as absurd as it was bewildering. The leader of the Space Black Widows watched the scene with her mouth literally hanging open. Her multiple eyes darted from one Spider-Man to another, trying to process what she was seeing. The Spider-Men, oblivious to the impact they were having, started waving, shooting toy webs, and striking heroic poses. The effect on the Black Widows, however, was immediate. The sight of so many human men, dressed in the symbol of an arachnid creature, combined with the strange fascination they already felt for Raul, created a chain reaction in their instincts. The predatory impulse completely vanished, replaced by a mix of confusion, curiosity, and an undeniable attraction. The leader, still in shock, looked at Zoraxa with an expression of disbelief. What have you done? Zoraxa smiled with satisfaction. I've shown them an alternative, she replied. I've shown them that males don't have to be just food. I've shown them that human males are incredible. Silence reigned in the chamber once again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. A silence of awe, of reflection. The invasion of Earth, the destruction of an entire planet, had been stopped by an army of men in Spider-Man costumes. The Space Black Widow Empire was about to face its greatest challenge, the challenge of adaptation, the challenge of accepting that maybe, just maybe, there were other ways to relate to males. And it was all thanks to a mechanic in a discount Spider-Man costume that was a little too small for him. Zoraxa, stepping back, looked at Raul with a new respect. How is it possible? She asked, her voice full of intrigue. How do you have this capacity for survival? Raul, smiling, answered, I told you. I survived a date with a feminist.
Did you enjoy the story? Tell me about it in the comments.